Welcome back. Our next guest is a photojournalist whose work has helped share and shape some of Canada's richest stories.
He just released a photo book called Leaving Good Things Behind, showcasing Atlantic Canada like you've never seen it before. We're really excited to have photographer Darren Calabrese here in studio. Welcome to the show.
You've said that you want to challenge the notion, the very narrow view, actually, that so many Canadians have of the Atlantic provinces. What did you mean by that?
I mean, simply put, you don't close your eyes. What would you think of when you think of Atlantic Canada? You've got lighthouses, lobster, smiling faces from a colored door, you know, something like this. Those things do exist there, but this is like, that's just so surface level.
Yeah.
And just like any community, you know, I mean, it'd be like saying people from Toronto are the 401 and CN Tower, right?
Right.
So, yeah, to be able to challenge is a tough one, but it's, you know, there's a variety and a complex group of people who live there, right? So we have Indigenous fishers, we have trans members in the Navy. You know, the Black experience in Canada really started in Nova Scotia. The Inuit and the northern coast of Labrador. I mean, this is traditionally not where the conversation has gone. And I get, it's tricky when we say surprising, because I hate that idea. It's not surprising that they've always been there. It's just, to include them in this book feels like it's a bit more of a comprehensive look at the region.
I love that. I love that. Now, I heard that one of the most challenging photos that you took involved you getting slapped in the face by an eel.
Yeah.
Do tell.
Yeah, it was so, yeah, I mean, slapped in the face, not exactly. Grazed over my head, for sure. Yeah, here it is here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you know, I find myself in so many different scenarios, but this is one of those jobs where I agree and say, okay, what am I doing today? I'm like, okay, North Shore, Nova Scotia, eel fishing with an Indigenous fisher, Carrie Prosper is his name. You just kind of show up and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's midnight. How do you eel fish? And you fish at night and you use that huge lantern to attract them, and I'm in the back of the canoe with him, and you take this 8 to 10 foot long spear and you kind of like noodle, and there's a basket between us, and this first eel, it's pitch black, and it just goes like straight over my head.
Oh my gosh.
And you know, I probably made 2,000 pictures that night trying to get them in focus to make something work, and maybe 2 were usable.
Wow.
Anyway, that's a story.
A night to remember.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous book, and I understand that there's a really deeply personal story that really was the inspiration behind this book. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, yes. I mean, first of all, I'm from there, right? That's home, so I think I've always had this in my head. But yeah, living here in Toronto with my wife, we had our first child. You know, life is kind of moving along. I'm in the bubble in Toronto working in the media. And yeah, I just got a text one day that my mom had been killed in a tragic accident. So, yeah, tree fell on her for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And my dad was there beside her. Oh. So yeah, that was like we said, it was the universe slapping us in the face saying it's time to go home.
Yeah, and you went home.
Yeah, and we pinch ourselves that we're there, right? I mean, that's where we're raising our family. It's kind of where we always thought we would do it.
Yeah.
But we always wondered, you know, we loved Toronto. We did. We fell in love with it. But just, yeah, didn't feel like it was home.
Calling to go back home, and you've captured home so well. You and I were just talking backstage about the wildfires that are currently raging. Climate change is a theme that runs through your book. Can you talk a little bit about the coverage right now that you've been doing? What's it been like there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can hear it in my voice. This is a week of breathing in the smoke, I guess. Yeah, it's been a real challenge, and look, my heart goes out to everybody there. You know, I feel a tremendous amount of guilt being here and not being there. But today seems like it's turning over, like the rain started today, and seems like the next 6 days that hopefully they'll get everything under control. And they had it 50% contained, but there's a long way to go. But the weather is going to help a lot. And this also reminds me, speaking of guilt, that it's my 7-year-old's birthday tomorrow.
Oh,
so,
happy birthday!
It's gonna make us cry.
But this is the guilt that I feel. I'm on the road a lot, and it's they get it, but still, kind of sucks.
Well, we've had some really interesting and important conversations on this show with journalists about the trauma that they face while they're doing their job, but we've never heard from a photojournalist. So is this an obstacle that you've also had to navigate through on the job?
Yeah. I mean, and me and many others, right? I mean, this is long overdue that we're having these conversations. I'm thankful that we are. It's a bit tricky. I mean, so journalists and photojournalists, we do the same thing. Collecting information, sometimes on the fly, especially breaking news. For photojournalists, there's been very few studies that have been done, because we're starting to pay attention now to the effects that are happening. So a lot of the symptoms seem to be really similar to first responders. I mean, we're there, we're on scene. Our relationship to the scenes are very different, but you hear what the burnout is, and there was a lot of people before me. And then, following the mass shootings, the mass killings in Nova Scotia, dramatically affected me.
Yeah.
And, I became morally injured. I was injured on the job. This is lingo that I'm getting used to using. But I was unable really to work. I eventually had to put my cameras away. And that led to some challenging conversations with clients. And it makes it really hard with photojournalists, because the majority of photojournalism being done in Canada is all freelance based.
Yeah.
So we're not in a newsroom. So these important conversations that are being had in newsrooms to open up support for them, well, there's a whole cohort of us that are working that don't have access to any of that.
Right.
So it's a really challenging conversation. I brought it up with the client, roughly what I was going through, and my livelihood is tied to those people calling me or answering my pitches. And they were sympathetic, but the system wasn't set up to be able to help. So we were left to kind of do it on our own.
Thanks for talking about that and sharing that with us. It's a really important conversation to have. And thanks so much for being here today. Leaving Good Things Behind is a beautiful book. Cynthia's going to pick it up right now and show you. And it's available everywhere right now. But to the lucky members of our studio audience, you're all going home with a beautiful signed copy today. Isn't that wonderful? We'll be right back. Thanks for watching. We've got lots more discussion and debates on everything from food and fashion to pop culture and current events. Don't forget to click like and subscribe.